Hello and welcome to this segment today, the 17th day of December, yes, and a very historic day that too, because today the new laws hit Queensland. Well, with that we'll find out today what are these new laws and what can we do, what we can't do in this period. Well, of course, we know that one of the things is unvaccinated people have restricted entry to many of the functions, events and venues. The onus would now be on the operators of these venues, business owners, to administer that, to police that, so it puts a little bit of extra burden on the operators. Well, right now, moving on, let's take a quick look at the terrible news coming out of Tasmania.
The close-knit community of Devonport in Tasmania is this morning trying to come to terms with yesterday's fatal jumping castle incident at that primary school, and a warning some viewers might find the details in this story distressing. The unimaginable tragedy has deepened overnight with the death of a fifth child. 4 others are still being treated in hospital.
They were among a group of students who fell around 10 metres when a gust of wind lifted a jumping castle and inflatable balls into the air at an end-of-year celebration at Hillcrest Primary School. Tributes and financial support are this morning pouring in from locals and around the country. Reporter Liz Gwynn joins us now from the school. And Liz, we woke this morning to more devastating news.
We did, Lisa. It's absolutely heartbreaking. A child was taken to hospital in a critical condition yesterday and has sadly passed away last night. So that brings the death toll from yesterday's accident to 5. And we know that 2 boys and 2 girls were killed in yesterday's accident when a jumping castle and several Zorb balls became airborne. They fell from a height of around 10 metres yesterday morning at about 10 o'clock. Now, this has just been absolutely devastating for the community. We've had a lot of locals out here today showing their support. No doubt this tragedy will be felt in the community for some time to come. I spoke to local Devonport resident Nathaniel Whiteley. Here's what he had to say a little earlier today.
It's going to be an unfortunate memory that's going to be embedded in the school for years, and you just can't take that away. My whole heart just sunk and got cold shivers through my body, and it's just so sad to hear.
Liz, we're starting to get more information about the young victims.
We are, Lisa. There are family members who have set up a fundraising page for 2 of the young victims we know that are in grade 6. So there is financial support that is coming through for their families at the moment. That's in the tens of thousands. There have been tributes that have been paid to those victims online, some describing the 2 young children as beautiful, caring souls. One is described as a sweet little girl, and there are so many messages of love and support from here but also right across Australia, Lisa.
Such a tragedy, Liz. How is the community taking the news?
The community is understandably heartbroken. It's such a difficult time for everyone, especially in Devonport, of a town of about 35,000 people. It's felt, even if they're not connected directly to the victims, they know someone who knows them. So it's a real tragedy. The mayor yesterday was saying it's definitely one of the toughest times they've had to face. But people have just been rallying together. We've had a steady stream of local residents who have been coming here to the scene. Behind me, you'll see that's just growing larger in size. Flowers are being laid, teddy bears are being put down. There's also handwritten notes as well to the young 5 victims of yesterday's accident, and candles have been lit. So people are really rallying behind the families who have lost someone. It's a tragedy any time of the year, but especially so close to Christmas, Lisa.
Liz, thank you for your reporting. And if you or someone you know is experiencing distress, please contact Lifeline on 13 11 14 or contact Kids Helpline on 1800 55 1800.
That is a terrible news, a terrible thing to have happened As we know, jumping castles have been the lifeline of many school fights and all the things, because people have always, taken that for granted. So it's a freak thing that, 10 meters up high in the air, and 5 innocent kids, poor little kids who have died. Such a tragedy. And here's what the police had to say.
This afternoon I can provide an update on the tragic incident at Devonport Hillcrest Primary School earlier today. I can now sadly confirm that 4 children have died, and 4 are in a critical condition and 1 in a serious condition. They were grade 6 students. Police and emergency services were called to the scene around 10 a.m. this morning after a wind gust had reportedly caused the jumping castle and inflatable Zor balls to lift into the air. Police and emergency services quickly began administering first aid at the scene. Of the 4 children, 2 were boys and 2 were girls. On a day when these children were meant to be celebrating their last day of primary school, instead we're all mourning their loss. Our hearts are breaking for the families and the loved ones, schoolmates, teachers of these young people who were taken too soon. Our thoughts are also with those emergency services personnel who attended to try and save these people's lives. We're going to be doing everything we possibly can to support the school community and the community at large. There will be counselling available to the wider community and also to the school community, and Secretary Tim Bullard will go into that further in relation to the school community. Our focus now is supporting those who are tragically affected by what's happened here today. The loss of children affects us all, and our thoughts and prayers are certainly with the loved ones and the school community. An investigation is underway. The coroner has visited the scene already. We'll be supplying a report to the coroner in conjunction with WorkSafe Tasmania. That will take some time to complete, and once that's completed it'll be handed to the coroner for an inquest. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the families affected by this and the wider school community. We know there are many going to be affected. We also know that many were there who witnessed this very tragic event. With that, I'll hand over to the Premier.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, today's tragedy at Hillcrest Primary School here in Devonport is devastating and heartbreaking for all involved. It's difficult for me to find the right words in such tragic circumstances, in which, as we've just heard, very sadly, 4 children have passed away. I'm certain that I speak for all Tasmanians in extending my deepest sympathies to the family, friends and loved ones of everyone affected by today's tragedy. For the 5 children who remain in hospital, our thoughts and prayers are with them and their families and their friends during this very difficult time. On a day when school children were celebrating at the end of term so close to Christmas, it's simply inconceivable that this shocking incident has occurred. We stand ready to provide whatever support we can to the families directly impacted, the students, staff and the broader community, and importantly also to our emergency services and our first responders, who I know have also been affected very deeply. I know that this is a strong and caring community that will stand together and support one another. I know that they will do that with love and kindness to get them through this. I know that I speak for all Tasmanians when I say that we will stand with this community through this difficult time as well. My heart goes out to everyone impacted by this tragic event, and I do want to just mention the helplines that people can reach out to should they need to. If you need support, you can call Lifeline on 131114, the Kids Helpline on 1800 551 800, The mental health helpline on 1800 332 388 or Beyond Blue on 1300 224 636. I know that this is utterly devastating and heartbreaking for all involved. And as I've said, I know I speak on behalf of all Tasmanians when I say that our thoughts and prayers are with those 5 children that are still in hospital, and our sympathies are with those families and friends and loved ones of the 4 children who have unfortunately passed away.
That is such a tragic incident. Well, right now we'll cross over and see if we can connect with the Premier as she is, conducting the live interview right here in Brisbane. Just bear with us while we'll try and see if we can connect to her feed. So, today we will have the upcoming events and everything that's going to be happening in the weekend. As we know, there's lots of things that's been planned.
About that, but we are not at that 90% double dose that New South Wales and Victoria are. So wearing a mask is an added precaution, and the mask wearing is actually happening in Victoria as well in some settings. So it's an added precaution over this Christmas New Year period, so families can enjoy their Christmas and not have to see loved ones ending up in hospital.
Can you rule out lockdowns over this
Yes, there won't be any lockdowns.
And why not mandate masks in venues and restaurants?
Because they're vaccinated only from today. So from 5 a.m. this morning, restaurants, cafes, all of those are you're vaccinated to go in there. So you should feel very safe. But if you can't socially distance, then the onus is on you, if you don't feel safe, to put a mask on.
Wasn't the health advice that LGAs that hadn't reached 80% double dose will still be subject to lockdowns?
Look, we're not expecting lockdowns over Christmas New Year period. By wearing these masks, we are hoping to slow the spread of the virus.
Premier, this is the last week, or really is before going to lockdown. So what happens if masks don't work? Do you see an increase in cases across Christmas?
Look, I honestly believe that Queenslanders know that the masks are effective, and they will do that. They will follow the health advice. And we had an early morning meeting this morning with the Chief Health Officer before I came here, and this was the proposal, and this is what we're accepting.
Are those communities that haven't reached 80% still at risk of a lockdown?
I'm very encouraged that we have most communities now that are almost on the verge of meeting 90%. There is really only some areas up in far north Queensland, and we'll monitor those areas to see if there are any outbreaks. But in retail settings, it is very important. Christmas shopping, you're shopping with your families, please make sure you are wearing your mask. So nearly every region is over 80% and very close to 80% double dose. Like, I'm very proud that Queenslanders have come out and got vaccinated. It's fantastic.
How would police monitor the mandate today?
The Police Commissioner will be attending the press conference at 10 o'clock and she'll be talking about that. But look, I urge people to do the right thing here. This is about families, and we're talking about children as well. Children under 12 who have not yet had that vaccine, feeling safe going into a restaurant or a cafe or a club in their local area, knowing that everybody else in that area is vaccinated.
What's found in favour of the New Hope group this morning?
Sorry?
If the courts find in favour of the New Hope group this morning, will you commit to fast-tracking those remaining?
I don't know what the courts are going to say, Lydia, and I won't be commenting until I see what the courts say.
What do you think of those 200 workers that have lost their jobs?
Well, it's always been, there was always an appeal to the courts, so we're going to wait and see what the court decision is today.
How about our Year 12 results?
Yes, when the Minister can talk about that.
Either of you?
Yes, I'm doing something this afternoon.
Okay.
Yes.
there we go. Minister.
I'm doing with some of the students this afternoon on the full ATAR results, but congratulations to all the Year 12 students. Good luck. I understand there's about 32 of them, unbelievable, that have got like the top mark of 99.95, which is an incredible feat when you consider some of the challenges of COVID. And we've got over 27,000 students that will be getting their ATAR. And a fellow standing behind me, his daughter's about to get hers as well. So good luck to Graham's daughter from All Hallows, who's looking at getting her ATAR results, but very exciting for students. But can I say, if they don't get the result that they want, don't despair, don't be disheartened. There are many pathways that we can take now that can get you on the right track to where you want to be in your career, and there's all those avenues available to students these days. But congratulations to those who get what they want. We've got about a large percentage that are getting a Queensland Certificate of Education, a QCE, and that's well over the 92% of the over 50,000 students we've had this year. So look, these are fantastic results, and we've increased by 10% the number of students to well over 90% who are engaged in education, training or work, which is really incredible when you consider that was around the 80% last year. So we've had an amazing engagement. These students are really and truly done us very proud, and I wish them all the very best. The world truly is their oyster, so well done.
Are there any plans to COVID test patients before they have elective surgery? There's some concern that if patients test positive and they'll inspect other staff members.
I think best to address that to the Chief Health Officer today. Yeah. Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks for coming, and great milestone today. Well done to all the workers. Merry Christmas. Well done. Yay. Excellent.
Well, thank you very much for that report. The apologies for the sound. Not a very good location for the mic and for the interview, but there you go. This is the point there now, is that as from today, all the venues where there are lots of people coming in, they have to be fully vaccinated. Only vaccinated people can enter those public venues, and the onus is on the operators of those venues to administer that. Well, here's some very good scenes coming out of Queensland as the borders open.
Oh, they're a bit hard to distinguish at the moment, but I'd definitely say this guy takes the cake for being the whingiest. He was the best sleeper, but he's just decided to be a big pain. So the other two are on the favourites list at the moment, and he's not.
Oh, right. And Josephine, tell us about Maverick and the other one.
Well, Maverick's quite active in the cot. He likes being turning parallel to where he's putting the cot, at 90 degrees to where he's putting the cot. And Winston, he's just, enjoys what babies do, sleeping, eating and pooing.
Listen, you both and the three boys were away from home for about 4 months because they were born prematurely, of course. How good does it feel to be home now?
Yeah, it's really good. We were sort of hoping to be home by Christmas, but obviously with that situation, you never know what's going to happen. So, to get back here for Christmas and have everyone here with the boys is really awesome. So we're pretty happy with that.
I'm sure you were all sort of really happy for the extra help that you're getting. Josephine, I wonder whether you both had to have rosters, or did you have to have shifts in terms of nappy changes, feeding?
We do. We joke with Mum that, having a grandma who's retired, probably didn't think she was going to be doing shift work in her 60s, doing the night shift with us. But yes, we are on a rotation at the moment where we all get up at different times of the night and try and keep the boys, fed, and ourselves get a little bit of sleep as well. It's a pretty brutal regime.
So that's a good story there. The triplets coming home to Queensland. Well, right now, moving on, we're taking a look at the economy. There's been lots that have been, said about the economy. The economy is rebounding. Well, there's election in the air, so, what are the budgetary projections? What are the promises that have been made? What about the wages? What about the interest rate? Well, as the economy starts to bounce, let's take a look at the effects.
As summer beckons, life in Western Sydney appears to be returning to normal, 2 months since the city's gruelling second lockdown.
It's not that people are sitting and feeling hopeless and despondent. We're very much ambitious and looking forward to addressing these challenges.
Our community wants to get back to what it was like prior to the lockdowns, but we can't do it on our own.
Hidayat Ozyan is glad to be back on the job after his construction business almost went bust.
Literally, we had no work in the last 3 months during the lockdown, and it was a very stressful time for my employee and for myself, and I was thinking probably this is going to be the end of my organization.
But the amount of work post-lockdown isn't what it used to be. Of his 25 workers, he's only been able to bring back 7.
Definitely we are not back to normal yet, so we are in just a recovery process.
As Australia's 4th largest economy, Western Sydney is often touted as the engine room of the nation. But during the city's 3-month lockdown, 12 local government areas faced tougher restrictions than the rest of Sydney.
Coming out of COVID, what we're seeing is that the national recovery isn't so clearly reflected in the Western Sydney economy. What we've seen now is that migration-fuelled economic growth pathway has not left a legacy of economic strength.
While the Morrison government talks up Australia's national recovery, recent data shows the hardest hit areas during lockdown have high rates of unemployment. As of October, the ABS says unemployment was 8% in the southwest and 8.8% in the inner southwest. That compares to 5.7% for Greater Sydney at that time. Unemployment figures released today do not include an update for those regions.
What we're seeing, for example, in parts of the southwest of Sydney is levels of unemployment around 8, perhaps even 9%, that are as bad as what we saw in the Great Recession of the early 1990s. And it's been that casualised, marginalised worker right across the Western Sydney economy that now finds themselves either out of work or with vastly fewer hours.
Amid the bustle on the streets of Liverpool in Sydney's southwest, some small businesses continue to struggle.
Hello, how are you? Good, thank you.
Policy researcher Archana Vula tracked the impact of lockdowns locally. She says many families are still trying to make ends meet.
There's a huge spike in need for food, emergency food relief, and of course the ongoing unemployment situation in these areas. One of the main things the community leaders and the communities were talking about was this idea of divided Sydney. They very much felt that the way Southwest Sydney LGAs were treated was different to the rest of Greater Sydney, and the key question we keep getting asked is, what will you do to rectify it? How do we bring Sydney back together?
Last month, an email from the state's chief health officer was made public. It revealed that as COVID cases were soaring back in August, Dr Kerry Chant recommended outdoor masks and 5-kilometre limits across the whole city, not just in the west.
My personal reaction to the recent email that came out from Dr. Chant was that it's very reflective of what was going on in the ground in Southwest Sydney. People were very in a tangible way feeling different and targeted, and perhaps that's what really happened.
I think it was wrong, and I've asked for an apology, and I think there needs to be an inquiry into how the government responds to health advice in the future, because I don't want this to ever happen again.
As restrictions ease in New South Wales, the state government is standing by its COVID response and says it followed the advice of New South Wales Health.
So this idea that we targeted Western Sydney based on the community, based on race, is really, for me, people trying to push this concept of Western Sydney as a victim here. We took action to protect people where the highest rates of infection were.
What do you think needs to be done to address the feeling of alienation among some people in migrant communities?
Well, I think this is about economic opportunity. What we want to be able to do is make sure that people right across the community, whether they live in Western or Southwest Sydney or whether they're a migrant Australian, we want them to have a strong economic opportunity.
The next train to arrive on platform 2.
27-year-old Mohammed Abbas is getting back on his feet after a torrid 2 years.
In March 2020, when the lockdown had started, I had lost my first job because that was an in-person job, face-to-face. From that time, for about 5 to 6 months, I did not have anything, and lockdown had started. That means we were sitting idle at home.
After being unemployed for months, the international engineering graduate has just started a new job. It's a long commute from his home to his harbourside workplace.
It usually takes me about 1 hour and 30 minutes to commute from my place to Barangaroo office.
Mohammed is among the 10,000 university graduates coming out of Western Sydney each year. But according to economic geographer Philip O'Neill, there are not enough professional jobs locally to employ them.
The growth of the graduate worker in Western Sydney exceeds the growth of the graduate worker in Perth, Adelaide and Brisbane combined. There needs to be a corresponding growth in professional services employment to meet that growing workforce.
So as per that report, there needs to be that report, because it has been mentioned that they have not been marginalised or separated. It's just that, there are so many people within the migrant community going for higher education, coming out with high degrees, and of course all those kinds of high quality jobs are not available out there in the suburbs. Well, with all of this, what's going to be happening with cost of living?
No virus can infect this Treasurer's optimism.
We're not going to see Omicron derail the recovery.
Josh Frydenberg ignoring a sea of red ink to sell the positive.
The nation is lockdown free. Consumers are spending, businesses are investing, and the jobs are coming back.
The mid-year budget update forecasting an improved bottom line. A $99 billion deficit this financial year, $7 billion better than forecast in May. The next year improving too, but higher than predicted deficits in the 2 years after that. Net debt to peak at $915 billion in 2024, lower than forecast in the May budget, but still eye-wateringly high.
Today's numbers, every single one of them assumes Australia stays ahead of COVID. That may well be true, but it's not certainly true.
Despite unemployment forecast to fall into the low fours, workers won't see much benefit in their pay packet. Once inflation is taken into account, real wages shrink by 0.5% this financial year, with only modest increases in the years after that.
Which means that people won't get a real wage increase for 2 years. Why should that be the case?
Employers out there chasing for workers, and when they're chasing workers, they're paying higher wages. That's good news for the economy.
Clues of an election war chest amassing too.
You looking forward to Christmas? Yeah!
$16 billion under the ever-mysterious decisions taken but not yet announced, including more than $5.5 billion to be spent in the next 6 months alone.
More of the same rorts, more of the same waste, more of the same missed opportunities.
The government insists some of those $16 billion are for new vaccine contracts and extra support for airlines. But a fair whack will be for election promises, which will come thick and fast when we go to the polls in March or May. Will it be quality spending? That'll be hotly contested. Election season's rarely the time for budget restraint, especially for a government looking for a fourth term. Andrew Probin, ABC News, Canberra.
Looking for a fourth term, that might be coming or not coming. Well, time will tell. As we have seen from all the reports, that the Treasurer is quite optimistic.
The Treasurer Josh Frydenberg joins me now from Canberra. Treasurer, before we get into the big picture on the mid-year economic forecast, why is an area like Western Sydney suffering from such comparatively high unemployment? And it's always been higher out there, especially for young people.
Well, there could be a variety of factors. It could be access to infrastructure. It could be the various economic conditions in the particularly local area. But what we saw, Lee, today was that 366,000 jobs were created over the course of the last month, the highest on record, and around half of those jobs were in New South Wales, which has roared back after the extended lockdown. So today's news about jobs is very positive indeed. There are 180,000 more people in work today than at the start of the pandemic. And what was also particularly pleasing about today's job numbers for the country is that around 60% of those jobs that were created in the month of November went to women and about a third went to young people. So we've actually had the strongest labour market recovery in the world.
When the Coalition was elected nearly 9 years ago, you promised to end, quote, Labor's debt, Labor's debt and deficit nightmare. In all that time, you've only taken the nation further into debt. To use the PM's words today, is this what you mean by shaking and baking the economy?
Well, you will remember that we delivered the first balanced budget in 11 years, which actually put the government and the economy in a position to respond as required to the pandemic. And it was because of that economic strength that we were able to put in place programs like JobKeep, which saved 700,000 jobs.
On the last day of this program for the year, address the question, which is about debt and taking the nation further back into debt without a clear plan to get out of it. Where is your budget repair plan?
Well, Lee, let me answer that question. We've been hit with the biggest economic shock since the Great Depression, the first pandemic in a century. It has required the spending that has been unprecedented, over 16% of GDP, over $300 billion, and the federal government has done the bulk of the heavy lifting when it comes to economic support. There was no alternative. Or we could have done nothing.
I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing about that.
But that is why, Lee, there is extra spending. Now, you asked me about the budget repair job, and can I say to you that we've actually seen an $80 billion improvement in the budget bottom line from what I announced last October.
But there's no long-term plan. There's no long-term plan that's visible to claw back this huge debt that the nation is in and the structural deficit that we've got there.
Well, I completely reject that characterisation of what we've seen today. There was an $80 billion improvement in the final budget outcome for 2021. What we saw today was that net debt peaks at 37.4%, whereas it was previously at budget peaking at 40.9%. We see the deficits halving over the forward estimates. We see unemployment getting into the fours, and sustainably so, for only the second time in 50 years. What is going to drive a stronger budget bottom line is going to be a stronger economy where more people are in work.
But do you really?
A stronger economy where more people are in work, of course, that is the case. And as he mentioned, he did not quite like the way that it was conducted, but I thought, he conducted himself quite well in looking at that very, very aggressive journalism there as well. I mean, of course, everyone's got a right to ask the questions, but you need to be professional and show your professionalism on there. Well, right now it's time to take a break, and let's take the message from our sponsors.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
real estate is well. And don't forget that every Wednesday we have Usha Chandra right here in the studios and discussing all the real estate trends, looking at the property values, looking at the auctions, listings, and the lot. Well, this month's Music Junction is lining up to be a very wonderful show hosted by RJ Savi. We'll be, introducing Neha Sada, a fresh new talent, to be featuring on the Music Junction, and that will be our anniversary celebration, because that marks the anniversary of the Music Junction when we started. Hard to see, very easily the year has just slipped past, and we are here on to our anniversary performance. We'll bring you more about that. Right now, let's take a look at functions and events happening in the weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in this segment. Don't forget that tomorrow we'll have the weekend roundup at 10 a.m. right here in these studios, and it's been wonderful having your company. Hey, look, if you have anything that you'd like to discuss, we'd gladly get you on the show. You can join us via a video link. We can get you via just a phone link as well. Whatever works, or best of all is if you can come here into the studios as well. So until tomorrow, it's goodbye from me. Thank you so much for your company.